presentation is I'm helping people learn how to evaluate yoga teachers. I think one of the things that happens is you end up in yoga class trying to evaluate somebody, and if you're not taking notes, and even no matter how much you're thinking about it, at the end of class you're like, that's great. This is a great class, right? Because for the most part, people, when they're teaching a yoga class, are 10% of what's happening, and you are 90% of what's happening in terms of, as you're practicing, there's like 10% of an external influence. And so it's hard to externalize and really focus in on what the teacher is actually teaching in terms of how to critique that. And I think the other thing is, you don't want to critique somebody's personality. Right. So the yoga that they're teaching is part of their personality, it's part of who they are. And so you don't want to be like, well, Elliot, your voice is just really grating. There's something grating about when you talk, and it reminds me of whatever. You know, it's people don't enjoy that. So what I have hoped to do here is bring together 8 different ways of looking at 8 different sections of how to evaluate somebody in terms of their teaching, and then ways to suggest that personal development, professional development in a supportive way, because I think that when a teacher becomes a stronger teacher, the students like that more. So one of the aspects is voice. Voice is pervasive in the yoga class, right? It's throughout the entire class. 90% of what you're doing as a yoga teacher is talking. It's using your voice. And so I think there are 3 different ways that we can evaluate teachers when we're looking at how they use their voice. And the first one is intonation. So I don't know if you've ever been in a class where somebody starts to talk like this, and the same kind of intonation over and over again, and towards the middle of the class you start to get seasick because of the variety in their voice, right? They're not sharing the variety of what's going on, and you forget about what they're actually saying, you just focus on the ups and downs and the ups and downs in the intonation. And that's something that I think happens most often with people who are introverted as teachers, because they're not used to talking to a big group of people. They're not comfortable talking to a group of people. They're more comfortable connecting with people one-on-one. So one of the ways to help teachers who are struggling with that is to ask them to teach each section of the class to a different person. So for triangle, I'm going to talk to Lene, and I'm going to say, Lene, but I'm not going to say Lene. I'll talk that person to you, and then as we get into a flow series, I'll talk to Elliot, and then I'll talk to Misty. And I'll direct my attention to different people, because as an introvert, that speaks to who I am on a more authentic level. And we'll get to authenticity a little bit later, but that speaks to me a little bit.